Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options to Play video update. So not only did we kick
Chinese
off
regulators are trying
the
to get Jack
the new
Ma's Ant
year
Group to share
yesterday,
consumer data
but we also
on
had
its
our
coin
first
jack.
option session of the new year yesterday as well. And one of the things we talked about was leap contracts. So not to go into it too in depth because I figure either you guys have already seen it or if you want to, you can go check out like the recap of last night's session. But one of like the main ideas that really like stressed when talking about leaps, and this kind of applies to just option trading in general, is just having the right expiration to line up with like the right setup, right? And so meaning like you don't want a short-term setup to be you don't want to be trading a short-term setup with like long-term contracts, and you don't really want to be trading a long-term setup with short-term contracts, right? And that might sound pretty straightforward, but sometimes it's not so simple to kind of recognize, right? And what I mean by this is like finding like the right chart setup to like meet the expiration of your trade. Okay, so when I look at Salesforce on a daily chart, so this is like a daily setup, right? I have the daily bars, this is the daily chart, this is what Salesforce has done for the last couple months. Now, all of my moving averages here are based off the daily chart, right? So when I'm looking at it, I say, okay, maybe it's starting to stabilize. There's some support around the 220 area. Obviously, it has a pretty significant gap on the upside, still got some space on the downside. So when I look at this and I try to design a trade, I'm designing that trade based off the daily, right? So like a contract that I select is going to be based off the daily chart. So that's probably going to be a month out, 2 months out, 3 months out, right? Because I'm looking at a daily chart. Odds are the type of move I'm going to be looking for is going to be, probably take a little time to develop. So I'm thinking maybe a month out. I'm thinking maybe like 2 months out, right? If I was looking at like an intraday chart, all right, say I'm looking at like 5 minute and I say, okay, Salesforce having a nice day. Maybe it pokes its head above 225. Maybe you can make a move into the gap today, right? Like now I'm looking at a 5 minute chart or a 10 minute chart. This is intraday. So I'm probably not going to look at options 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks out if I'm looking at an intraday setup, right? Because this is a fast developing day trade. So I'm looking at shorter term stuff. So maybe weeklies or next week's options, right? So going back to the leap idea, right? So if I'm looking at a chart and I'm thinking, okay, I want to look at leaps, whether that's selling puts or being, going long leap option calls, then I'm probably not going to want to, well, I'm definitely not going to want to use the 5 minute and the 30 minute chart because those are very short term setups. And I'm looking at options that are 9, 12, 18, 24 months out, right? So even like the daily chart to me doesn't really it's not really like an accurate identification of like a good setup because these are patterns that will probably resolve in a lot shorter time frame, right? Like maybe like a couple weeks or maybe like a month and a half. So what you want to do is go out to like weeklies, right? So like now I can say, okay, like the weekly chart, I can identify more important levels from like a weekly perspective, right? Because now at least this is a longer period. So I say like, okay, maybe like the real support level doesn't come into play until like the 50 week, which is down around 200, right? And maybe if I'm going out 24 months, then I want to look at say like the monthly chart, right? Because that's an even longer period. And I say, okay, from a monthly perspective, I probably don't have any legitimate major support until like the 190 area. So really like the point of last night and the point of what this video is, it's to stress that you really want the setup and you want the expiration to line up, right? So I'm not going to screen for a leap setup using like an intraday or a daily chart. I'm going to screen for a leap setup using weekly charts or monthly charts. And I'm not going to screen for a day trade based off of like a weekly chart or a monthly chart, right? I'm looking at 5 minutes, I'm looking at 30 minutes, I'm looking at intraday moves, right? So that's really to me like one of like the main concepts around options. It's having the right expiration to line up with like the right target to line up with like the right strategy, right? And this is one of the ways to go about it. I mean, there definitely are more pieces to the pie, but this is one of like the main ones, and it's really worth reiterating. All right. So if you like this video and you are looking for more information on just option basics, or if you're looking for more information on option swing trading, like leap swing trading, please follow up with the link in the description of the video for more information on options to play. It's a new year. There's a lot to look forward to. I'm optimistic that the next few weeks are going to be just packed with stuff going on. So I think that it's going to be very, very, very busy. Um, I also am just, hoping the momentum stays from the end of last year. There's a lot going on, so I think it's going to be a good year. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm glad you guys are all here for the ride. So have a wonderful night, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.